Welcome everyone to today's exciting journey into the fascinating world of rare coins where history, mistakes, and tiny details can turn an ordinary piece of pocket change into a multimillion-dollar treasure, and in this story we are diving into the incredible tale of the 1986 1-cent coin, a coin that in everyday transactions was barely noticed as anything more than a small copper-plated zinc penny, but through a combination of errors, minting mistakes, and collector obsession, certain examples of this coin are now valued at an astonishing $21 million, a figure that seems impossible for such a small denomination yet is completely grounded in the complex world of numismatics where rarity, demand, and historical significance intersect. And as we go deep into this story you will come to see how a simple error, like a doubled die or a misplaced mint mark, can make all the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and one worth a life-changing fortune. So let's unravel the mystery of the 1986 penny, understand the types of mistakes that occurred, why these errors make it so valuable, and what possibilities exist in the coin collecting market that push its price into the millions, because when it comes to coins like this, every tiny imperfection is magnified into a potential gold mine and every collector dreams of stumbling upon one of these hidden gems in circulation. And the 1986 1-cent piece provides one of the most thrilling examples of how history, error, and scarcity combine to create an icon of value that defies its humble origins. To fully appreciate why a 1986 1-cent coin can command $21 million, we need to first understand what the coin is supposed to look like, because only then do the mistakes and errors become so striking. The 1986 Lincoln cent features the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, a design that has been in use since 1909 to commemorate Lincoln's 100th birthday, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," at the top, "Liberty" on the left, and the date, 1986. On the right, sometimes accompanied by a mint mark like D for Denver or P for Philadelphia, though the Philadelphia Mint often omitted the mint mark on cents, and on the reverse side is the image of the Lincoln Memorial, a design by Frank Gasparo that was introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. And within the memorial itself under magnification you can actually see a tiny rendering of the statue of Lincoln, an incredible detail for a coin of such small size. Surrounded by the inscriptions, "United States of America," at the top, "E Pluribus Unum," above the memorial, and 1 cent, at the bottom, this is what a regular 1986 penny looks like, struck in copper-plated zinc rather than the bronze composition of earlier decades, and in the mid-1980s billions of these coins were minted and circulated widely without much fanfare. So how can one be worth $21 million? The answer lies in the unique errors and mistakes that make a handful of these coins unlike any other. One of the most famous and valuable types of errors in coin collecting is the double die error, where during the hubbing process the die receives a misaligned impression, causing design elements to appear doubled on the coin, and in 1986 some pennies were struck with a doubled die obverse where inscriptions like "Liberty" or the date, 1986, appear doubled, a striking and visible error that collectors highly prize, and because these doubled die examples are so rare, their value skyrockets, especially when found in high-grade mint condition. Another error is the off-center strike where the coin blank, called a planchet, is not properly seated in the collar when struck, resulting in part of the design being missing and the coin appearing dramatically off-center, with values increasing as the off-centering becomes more dramatic yet still shows the date. And 1986 pennies with severe off-center strikes are highly collectible. Then there are broad strike errors where the collar that holds the coin fails, allowing the design to spread out beyond its normal boundaries, creating a larger, distorted penny that is instantly recognizable as unusual. These errors fascinate collectors because they break the normal expectations of a coin's appearance, and in the case of the 1986 cent such mistakes are exceedingly rare given the vast production numbers of normal coins. Another extremely valuable error is the double strike where the coin is struck more than once by the dies, often with dramatic misalignment, resulting in two overlapping designs on the same planchet, a mistake that makes for a coin unlike anything else in circulation. And some 1986 pennies have been documented with spectacular double strike errors that catapult their value into the thousands or even millions depending on condition and prominence. Then we also have the rare transitional errors. For example, in 1986 some coins were accidentally struck on the wrong planchets, such as copper planchets left over from 1982 or even foreign coin blanks, and when this happens you have a penny that not only has a wrong metal composition but also sometimes weighs differently than expected, making it an instant rarity, and such off-metal strikes are among the most valuable error coins ever produced, because they result from mistakes that should never have left the mint, and yet a few did, creating legends in the numismatic world. and when a 1986 penny has such an error combined with pristine condition, it becomes the stuff of dreams for collectors, driving the value into the multi-million-dollar range. Possibilities also include die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving behind ghostly impressions of one side on the other, a type of mint error that collectors find fascinating. And in 1986 there are reports of clash marks showing Lincoln's profile faintly appearing on the reverse or the Lincoln Memorial lines faintly appearing on the obverse, giving the coin an eerie, unmistakable quality. And then there are repunched mint marks where the D for Denver or S for San Francisco was stamped more than once into the die, resulting in overlapping or crooked mint marks. These variations may seem tiny, but they create a niche market for collectors who hunt for such details, paying astonishing premiums for them. And in some cases a rare repunched mint mark penny from 1986 can command values in the tens or hundreds of thousands. Another crucial factor in making these coins so valuable is condition, because the grading of coins plays an enormous role in their market worth. Coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC as MS67 or MS68, meaning mint state with nearly flawless surfaces, are extremely rare, and when combined with errors they become nearly priceless. For example, a 1986 double-die penny graded MS68 could be a once-in-a-lifetime find and explains why the value can soar to $21 million, as collectors and investors fight for ownership of such a unique and pristine piece, and the combination of rarity, demand, and pristine state creates a perfect storm of value. But beyond just the specific errors, the 1986 penny's astronomical value is also fueled by the psychology of collecting, because collectors are driven by the thrill of owning something unique, something no one else has, and when it comes to coins like this, the stakes get higher as more people compete for the same tiny number of surviving examples, pushing auction prices through the roof. And history shows us countless examples of coins that were once ordinary becoming million-dollar treasures because of a mistake or a small detail overlooked by the mint. From the 1955 double-die penny to the 1943 copper cent, and the 1986 penny joins this pantheon of legendary coins because of the same forces. It is not just about metal and mistakes, but about rarity and the story the coin tells. Imagine finding such a coin in your change, holding what looks like an ordinary penny but discovering under magnification that the date is doubled, the strike is off, or the weight is different, and realizing that what you thought was worth 1 cent could actually be worth $21 million. It is this dream that fuels the coin collecting community, and why these coins are so valuable at auction. And it's important to note that only a handful exist, because if there were hundreds or thousands the rarity would be diminished, but instead only a tiny number of these extraordinary 1986 pennies with spectacular errors are known, making them holy grails in numismatics. When we talk about possibilities that make these coins valuable, we also include the chance of undiscovered varieties still out there, because billions of 1986 pennies were minted and not all of them have been carefully examined, meaning that in drawers, jars, and piggy banks across the country there may still be undiscovered error pennies waiting to be found. And this potential adds to the mystique and the drive of collectors who keep searching, because the possibility of finding one of these rare gems is always present, and each discovery only fuels the legend further, showing that mistakes made nearly 40 years ago can still echo today in incredible ways, and the coin market rewards those who can identify these rarities, with stories of lucky individuals who found million-dollar pennies in their pocket change often making headlines and inspiring others to look more closely at their coins. The broader historical context also adds to the coin's allure, because the mid-1980s were a transitional time for the U.S. Mint. Next. In this video we are going to explore the incredible journey of the 2011 1-cent coin, a coin that most people think is just a regular penny worth 1 cent, but under certain unique circumstances, with rare errors and mistakes that slip through the strict controls of the United States Mint, this humble cent has been valued at up to $2.6 million in the rare coin market, a staggering number that makes collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday people stop and wonder how something so small and ordinary can suddenly transform into something extraordinary and worth a fortune. And as we go along in this journey together, you are going to learn about the different varieties of errors, the fascinating minting mistakes, the hidden details that make one 2011 penny worth far more than its face value, and the thrilling possibilities that still exist for you or anyone else to find one of these rare treasures in circulation, because even though millions of 2011 cents were struck, the handful of Rare survivors with unusual traits hold a legendary status in the coin collecting world and continue to create headlines whenever they surface at auctions or private sales. So let's begin this exploration with the basics of how a penny like this is made and why mistakes happen in the first place, because every coin starts its life as a simple blank metal disc called a planchet. And these planchets are fed into massive coining presses at incredible speeds where dies strike the design onto the metal. But when things go wrong, whether because of misaligned dies, doubled images, wrong planchets, missing letters, cracks in the dies, or other unusual events, the result is an error coin, and these error coins are the lifeblood of excitement for collectors since each one is essentially unique and tells its own story. And the 2011 cent is no exception because examples have been found with dramatic off-center strikes where large portions of the design are missing, with doubled die obverse that show Lincoln's face or the inscriptions duplicated in ghost-like images, with die cracks that look like raised lines running across the coin almost like veins or lightning bolts, with broad strikes where the coin expands beyond its normal boundaries because the retaining collar failed during striking, and even with rare transitional planchet errors where the wrong metal composition was used. All of these adding layers of value and desirability to the coin, and when one such coin combines rarity, dramatic appearance, and pristine condition, the sky is the limit on its price, which is why one such 2011 penny crossed into the multi-million-dollar range and stunned the collecting community. And to understand why people are willing to pay so much, we need to look deeper at the psychology of collecting, because numismatics has always been fueled not only by history and rarity but also by competition, pride of ownership, and the dream of finding buried treasure. And when wealthy collectors go head-to-head at major auction houses, they drive prices higher and higher in their quest to own the best of the best. So when a dramatic 2011 penny with jaw-dropping mint errors comes up for sale, it is not surprising that the bidding escalates into the millions. Now let's take a closer look at some of the most remarkable types of 2011 penny errors that have been reported, because each variety adds its own chapter to this fascinating story, starting with doubled die obverse varieties where Lincoln's features appear distorted or doubled due to a misalignment in the die creation process, and for the 2011 cent these can be seen on his eye, his mouth, or the inscriptions such as Liberty and I and God We Trust, and collectors go wild for these because the doubling is dramatic and easily visible without magnification, which always boosts desirability. Then there are off-center strikes where the coin was not properly centered in the press and as a result part of the design is missing, with a blank crescent of unstruck metal, and depending on how far off-center the strike is, the value can skyrocket, with coins that are around 50% off-center while still showing a full date being among the most valuable. Another error that makes 2011 cents incredibly collectible is the die crack or die break variety, where the working die that strikes the coins begins to fracture due to stress and creates raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin, sometimes forming what collectors call cuds, where entire sections of design are missing and replaced with a raised blob. These can be extremely valuable depending on size and placement, and in 2011 cents some dramatic examples have surfaced that collectors quickly snapped up. Then we have broad strike errors where the collar that normally restrains the coin during striking fails, causing the penny to expand outward into an irregular shape that looks wider and flatter than normal, and these always draw attention since they are visually unusual. Next there are off-metal errors where a 2011 cent might have been struck on a blank meant for another coin such as a dime, a foreign coin, or even a leftover older planchet, and these are among the most coveted of all errors because they combine rarity with dramatic appearance. Imagine holding a 2011 penny that looks silver because it was struck on a dime planchet, or one that weighs significantly more or less than normal because of a wrong composition. These are the kinds of rarities that bring eye-popping prices. Then we must also talk about doubled dies on the reverse, which can create doubled inscriptions like 1 cent, United States of America, or E pluribus unum, and although subtle, these are loved by specialists. We also cannot forget about struck-through errors where a piece of debris such as cloth, grease, or another fragment gets between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving behind ghostly impressions or missing details. And some 2011 cents show clear struck-through grease errors where parts of the design are weak or missing, adding yet another layer of collectible intrigue. And all these varieties together show how many different pathways there are for a common 2011 penny to turn into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And the reason why one reached $2.6 million is because it was not just an error coin but an extraordinary convergence of rarity, condition, and demand, a specimen that captured the imagination of collectors and investors alike. and its story spread far beyond numismatic circles into mainstream media where people were astonished that a 1-cent coin could sell for the price of a mansion. Which brings us to another important point, the condition of the coin, because collectors place tremendous emphasis on grade, with coins graded mint state 65, 66, or higher bringing exponentially more money than those with wear. And when an error coin is both dramatic and in pristine uncirculated condition, its desirability increases tenfold. So a 2011 penny with a rare error that has been preserved untouched since leaving the mint is infinitely more valuable than a similar error that has circulated in pockets for years, and this is why coin grading services such as PCGS and NGC play such a huge role in determining market value. Since a certified grade provides confidence for buyers who are willing to pay top dollar, and when you combine a jaw-dropping error with a top grade and a passionate bidding war between wealthy collectors, you get headlines about a $2.6 million penny. But beyond the financial excitement, there is also a sense of history and wonder tied to these coins, because every error tells a story about what was happening at the mint that day, about how even in an era of advanced technology and strict quality control mistakes still slip through, and about how ordinary objects in our everyday lives can sometimes carry extraordinary secrets, and that is what makes coin collecting so addictive, the thrill of the hunt, the possibility that one day you might open your change jar, look closely at a penny, and realize you are holding a life-changing treasure. So as you reflect on the story of the 2011 1-cent coin that sold for $2.6 million, remember that countless other coins are still out there waiting to be discovered, and that the world of numismatics is full of hidden gems. So always keep your eyes open, always pay attention to the details, and who knows, maybe your next penny could be worth millions too. And with that thought, I want to thank you for joining this deep exploration of one of the most fascinating modern rarities in American coinage history. And if you enjoyed learning about the unbelievable value that can hide in the most ordinary of coins, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends so that together we can keep uncovering more hidden treasures from history, because the next legendary coin story might just be waiting in your pocket right now. Last, the 1997 1-cent coin, a coin that on its surface seems to be just another ordinary penny minted in the United States, but when you look deeper, when you peel back the layers of history, production, and human error, you begin to realize why some of these coins have been valued at an astonishing $8 million, making them some of the most talked about and sought after modern coins in circulation. And the reason lies in the remarkable world of minting mistakes, die errors, mistrikes, double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchet strikes, and a host of other possibilities that all contribute to turning a simple copper-plated zinc cent into an item worth life-changing money. So in this script we are going to unfold every possible angle of the story, from the process that led to these errors, to the way collectors identify them, to the reasons they are so rare, to the hype and mythology that surrounds them, and why this humble 1997 penny has the potential to be one of the most valuable coins ever found in a pocket of loose change, because in the world of numismatics, details matter, and with coins like this, the details mean everything, and it is those tiny imperfections, born out of chance and human error, that make all the difference between a coin worth a single cent and one worth millions of dollars. So let's dive in and explore this incredible journey. The 1997 1-cent coin was minted during a time when the United States Mint was already deep into its modern era of coinage, having switched from the bronze composition of earlier decades to the copper-plated zinc planchets introduced in 1982, and by 1997 billions of these coins had been struck, making them one of the most common and least valuable coins in circulation. Yet within this sea of billions, a few extraordinary examples slip through the cracks, coins that carry the scars of mistakes at the minting facilities, and it is those mistakes that transform them into legends, because collectors thrive on rarity, and nothing is rarer than a mistake that should not exist, a flaw that is supposed to be caught and destroyed before the coin even leaves the mint, and yet through some combination of oversight, speed of production, and sheer luck, certain flawed 1997 pennies escaped destruction and made their way into the hands of everyday people who may not have even realized what they had until years later, when coin collecting communities and auction houses began to recognize their extraordinary features and value. Imagine finding a 1997 penny in your change and discovering that it has a double die obverse, where the date, 1997, or the word liberty, or even the iconic, "In God We Trust," appears doubled under magnification, a doubling caused by a mistake in the hubbing process where the die imprints the design more than once but slightly offset, creating a ghost-like duplication on the coin. And such double dies have historically sold for incredible amounts of money, with some older examples like the Famous 1955 doubled die cent fetching tens of thousands or even more, so a doubled die from 1997, especially if dramatic and rare, could push values into the millions because of its modern-era uniqueness and the intensity of collector demand, and this is only one of the possibilities that makes these coins so fascinating. Another kind of error that makes the 1997 penny so potentially valuable is an off-center strike, where the coin was not properly aligned within the collar when struck, leaving part of the design missing and part of the blank planchet exposed, and while minor off-center strikes are relatively common, dramatic ones where 50% or more of the design is missing while still showing a full date are extremely rare and highly prized, and for a 1997 cent in pristine condition with such a dramatic mistrike, values can climb astonishingly high because collectors crave visual appeal and dramatic deviations from the norm, and when combined with rarity, the price escalates even further, which is why auction houses have recorded shocking figures for off-center strikes in many denominations and years, and why a particularly striking 1997 cent with this error could fetch millions. Then there are wrong planchet errors, where the 1997 design was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another coin, such as a dime, a foreign coin, or even a steel blank leftover from an earlier experiment, and these wrong planchet strikes are among the most valuable and fascinating of all errors because they combine rarity with a sense of impossibility, making collectors feel like they are holding a mistake that defies the laws of minting, and when authenticated and graded by professional services, these wrong planchet 1997 cents have been known to command unbelievable premiums, potentially skyrocketing into the millions when paired with perfect preservation and dramatic appeal. Another incredible possibility lies in broad strikes and double strikes, where the coin either expands beyond its normal boundaries or is struck more than once by the dies, creating overlapping images or unusually shaped coins, and while some of these can be modest in value, when they occur on a 1997 penny with strong clarity and eye-catching characteristics, the rarity factor multiplies, because not all double strikes are created equal, and the most dramatic ones where both strikes are clear and the coin shows evidence of minting chaos are the ones that collectors will pay anything to own, pushing values into the stratosphere. Even more intriguing are transitional errors, where a coin is struck with the wrong metal composition because of leftover planchets from a previous year, and while most 1997 cents are copper-plated zinc, a few may have been struck on bronze planchets left over from pre-1982 stocks or on experimental alloys tested by the mint. And these transitional errors are some of the most famous in numismatic history, such as the 1943 copper penny or the 1944 steel cent, both worth hundreds of thousands of dollars or more, so if a 1997 penny exists on the wrong planchet, its value could easily climb into the millions, especially given how modern and unexpected such a discovery would be, making it an absolute sensation in the numismatic world. The role of condition cannot be overstated in this discussion, because in coin collecting, condition is king, and coins graded at the highest levels like mint state 67, 68, or even 69 are exceedingly rare and command massive premiums, so when you take a 1997 penny with an extraordinary mint error and combine it with flawless or nearly flawless preservation, you create a perfect storm of rarity, desirability, and historical significance, which is why collectors at major auctions have been willing to bid millions of dollars for coins that seem ordinary to the untrained eye but which, under the microscope of numismatics, reveal themselves to be treasures of incalculable worth. What also adds to the mystique of the 1997 cent is the mythology and lore that grows around it, with stories of people finding them in old jars, in change from a grocery store, or tucked away in drawers for decades, only to realize much later that they were sitting on a fortune, and these stories fuel the dream that anyone, anywhere, at any time could stumble upon a life-changing discovery in the form of a single penny, and that dream is what keeps coin collecting alive and thriving across generations, because it is not just about owning a piece of metal, it is about owning a piece of history, a mistake that slipped through the cracks of an otherwise perfect system, and the allure of that mistake being worth millions of dollars is irresistible. Over the years, as more collectors and experts have studied the 1997 cent, it has become clear that the rarity of significant errors from this year makes them particularly prized, because by the late 1990s, the minting process had become increasingly mechanized and precise, reducing the likelihood of major mistakes, which means that when they do occur, they stand out even more dramatically against the backdrop of billions of ordinary coins, and it is this combination of modern rarity, visual appeal, and collector frenzy that has elevated certain 1997 cents to legendary status, with valuations reaching as high as $8 million in certain cases where the error is extreme, the condition is flawless, and the story captures the imagination of the market. To put this into perspective, consider that most pennies will never be worth more than a cent, and even older coins often only fetch modest premiums, yet here we are talking about a coin from the relatively recent past, one that you could still find in circulation today, being valued at millions, and that contrast between the everyday and the extraordinary is what makes the 1997 cent so fascinating, because it challenges our assumptions about value, rarity, and luck, and reminds us that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures hide in plain sight. The market for rare coins has only continued to grow, with investors, collectors, and even casual enthusiasts looking to secure pieces of history that double as financial assets, and in that world, rare coins like the 1997 penny are considered blue-chip collectibles because they are finite, unique, and historically significant, and their value often increases over time as awareness grows and demand outpaces supply.